Yeah,
But
I appreciate that, man. And to be honest, though, that's kind of what this is about, though, because you know, regardless of how we feel, and even if we don't talk about everything, we're still out talking, and we're still, you know, we're not locking
yeah,
ourselves away, right? Do you get what I mean? So
absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Like, as you say, it'd be quite easy just to sink in and sit down, sink into a bottle, or do something
100%.
stupid.
I've been there
It's just
before, man. I've been there. Do you know what I mean? So
we have a bit of a motto in the gym here. It's like, what would you prefer to do on a Friday night? Go down the gym and go down the pub and get pissed, or come and punch your mates in the face. And
that's I like
it's a
that
bit of
actually.
a motto. Yeah, yeah. We always call Friday class. We call them fuck 'em up Fridays. You know what I mean? Because Friday's generally a harder class, so um, yeah, we sort of put some extra emphasis into that.
So if I do get down there, I don't want to start on a Friday then.
So right, we'll take it easy, mate. If you come down, that's
Cool.
it. That's it. How have you been anyway? You been alright?
Yeah, it's been a chill day. I mean, I'm still off on annual leave. I've got a few days left, so
Yeah.
um, I trained myself earlier, done some reading. It's been a relaxed day, so
Yeah, I saw you posted a few videos today, didn't you? So
yeah.
I was sort of half watching the one you did with the lady. Um, was it yesterday or
Oh,
the day
Trey the
before?
other day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think I watched about 20 minutes of that one.
oh, fair enough.
Um,
Appreciated.
to get a feeling really of kind of you know what to expect, I suppose.
Yeah, that was actually a really good chat the other day because again, that's Trey's the first lady that's been on here, so it was good to know see how ego affects women and feelings and emotions and whatnot. And yeah, it's a good conversation. So as you see the way it is. It's chilled. A lot of the questions are actually based today on like you boxing and your experiences with that
Yeah, brilliant,
because
mate.
it sort of come to mind. That's actually quite an important thing because if anyone was like me, I hesitated before I ever boxed. Like the events was my first boxing I did, the and I wanted to box years and years and years before that.
Yeah,
But sometimes it's if I had spoke to someone who did boxing or understood it, I might have got involved a bit earlier. Maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't have. But I think
yeah,
some of the questions may help with that. Right. So you ready? Should we go?
yeah. Let's do it, mate. Let's do it.
Cool. So, Darren, thanks for jumping on today. I appreciate that. I know you've got your class later, but you said you've got a bit of time to do this now, so that's appreciated. Um, and I want to start off with we met earlier on in the week, didn't we? Which was quite good because I think that helped set the tone for today. Sort of
Yeah,
get an
absolutely, mate.
idea of where we both were and the kind of things that we can talk about today. So,
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
and we first met at the was it 2015 if I think because that was if I'm right that was my first event. So I'm sure you were
Yeah,
on the
we
first
both
one.
boxed on that show. Both of us boxed on the same show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And do you know what? A little confession, I'll admit. I was out of the people there. You're one of the people I was worried about running into. When we were matched up with fights,
yeah,
and the reason was because on some people's profiles, the pictures they had on the Facebook, I could see they were just trying to come across and look tough and strong. You look like you were about your boxing business, even from your first picture. You look
yeah.
like, uh, you know, no shit with this. You don't mess about with it, and you look serious. And I thought this guy could be a problem if I bump into him because I could see you knew what you were doing in the ring. So
I
how
appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah. One thing I've always taken seriously, Mark, as is my boxing.
mm,
It's my passion and my love, and yeah. So yeah, it has been for many years now. I think I first stepped into boxing when I was about 15, and yeah, really sort of started taking it seriously in my sort of late 20s, and yeah, sort of really developed from there.
well, I'll jump in there because you're going to probably go through all my questions otherwise. So, but literally, that's I'll start off with what's your youngest memory of boxing? Whether it's watching someone box, someone on TV, or boxing with your friends or whatnot. What is your youngest memory of boxing?
So the first memory I've got of boxing, really and truthfully, was when I they used to run a summer scheme through our schools when we were in primary school. It was called Splash. Some of your older viewers might
Oh,
remember
yeah,
it.
yeah. I know the splash events was that.
Yeah, it was through the police, and basically you paid a
Mm.
pound and you got to do like an activity. And one of the activities was boxing, and it was over at Hightown Recreation Centre. They had a boxing gym over there. It's not there anymore. But yeah, I remember going in there and being absolutely fascinated. I think I was about maybe 11, kind of, and I was just like, wow, like this is amazing. Seeing kind of the stuff they did there, and I think that sort of planted a seed for this kind of journey that I've been on within the boxing world. Um, I mean, I suppose, in terms of remembering watching it, I always remember when I was quite a bit younger, actually, going around to my older cousin's house, and they would quite often put the Rocky film on, and we would sit there and at sort of maybe 7 or 8 years old, be like, wow, this is like amazing, and obviously, as I'm sure you can appreciate, my parents weren't best impressed, but I think it sort of planted that seed.
I was gonna say my first ever memory of boxing, or what comes to mind, was actually watching Bruno fight Mike Tyson for the first time.
Yeah,
I
it was a
would
brilliant
want to
fight.
say was that 89? Was it 89 or something along them times? It was one of them ones around. I'm sure it was 89. Whatever fight their first one, I think it was 89. And I remember watching that, and like my mum was there screaming at the TV every time Bruno was getting hit, and I don't remember much of it, but I remember that was the first time I remember anything to do with boxing.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, Bruno was a bit of a national hero, wasn't he? Obviously went on to win the WBC belt, and was a world champ, and probably overachieved for his abilities. But
Mm.
he was British, and he had the character about him, didn't he? The catchphrase with his coach. So yeah, he captured a lot of hearts.
Well, he stuck at it, didn't he? Persistence, and obviously that's something that's key to anything in life, but especially when it comes to these kind of sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I think that's something that I've learned over the years. Not just within boxing, but I suppose within life. It's about that determination and drive, isn't it? That if you want to do something, you've got to want to do it. And you've really got to want to put the work into it. Obviously we get guys coming in the door all the time at the gym saying, Darren, I want to box. Darren, I want to fight. And my response is always, well, if you put the work in, then maybe we'll see where what can happen.
That's good you touched on that because that's a question, similar question to that I had down. So we'll go to that one. I was going to say, is it important for you to check or find out people's motivations for wanting to box when they step into the gym, or do you just accept anyone?
I mean, what I will do, I will absolutely have to assess people, Malcolm. It's a dangerous sport fundamentally. Getting punched in the head, you can get really quite seriously injured, and of course we have to assess anyone that walks in the door. When we get new people come in, I generally have a set of questions that I will ask in terms of why are you here, what is it you want to achieve, what is your background in martial arts or boxing, what's your experience level, and I generally from that conversation can gauge where that person's at and gauge kind of what they're going to need in terms of their training and in terms of what we're going to let them do, at what time, and how their development might be.
Cool. I'm going to sort of go back again. That might be covered with what you said about when you first went to the gym in Hightown when it was with Splash.
Yes.
Um, was that the first time you actually sparred? Because I wanted to talk about the actual first time you sparred. Would they have let you
No,
do it at that age, or would it have just been
no, we didn't spar. No, we just got to
all
hit
right?
some pads in there. That was all we was allowed to do really at 11. No, the first time I ever sparred was, I suppose, I would have been in my probably, I'm just trying to think, maybe late 20s. So I was training at a professional gym, which is no longer there. It was run by a former professional Luton boxer called Graham Earl, which I'm
Yep.
sure many people will know of, and yeah, and I sort of remember going in there and being terrified, like putting the head
Right.
guard on, putting the mouth guard in, and trying to put into play all of the kind of the practice and work that he'd been teaching me, in terms of throwing the jab and moving your head and and kind of going in there and actually afterwards thinking, well, I loved that. That was brilliant, actually, we realise you're not made of glass, and as long as you've got a good coach overseeing the sparring, you know, anyone can do it. As long as you're ready to do it.
What other feelings come with that? Because that's what I was going to ask. Like you said, you said you felt sort of terrified or nervous or whatnot. What other feelings? You're actually now sparring. What else come to mind?
Well, I suppose that one thing that I've always loved about the sport and sparring as well is that when you're doing that, that's the only thing that you're doing. Your mind's completely clear. You're not focused on have I paid the bills, have I done the shopping. Is work done? It's just that thing in that moment. So I suppose that is something that I've always really enjoyed from doing any sort of martial arts. That being present in that moment, and I think that's something that I picked up from the very first time. Really, that I need to be focusing, I need to be concentrating, I need to be listening to the coach and listening to what they're telling me. Because fundamentally, as I said, someone's going to try and punch me, and I've got to protect myself and try and punch them back. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of emotions, linked to doing the sport. I think.
That's a good point you said in regards to focusing just on what you're doing in the ring at that moment, because you hear it every now and then that a fighter that maybe didn't perform as well as he should have in the ring, and then it might come out weeks afterwards that he had this going on or was distracted by that, and it's almost like the only thing you can think about in the ring is what you're going to do and your opponent in front of you. You can't let other things take up any sort of thought process within the ring, can you?
No, absolutely, mate. You're right. You're absolutely spot on. One of the teachings that I attest to all of my boxers, is looking at what we call boxing psychology. And what I mean by that is, it's not just about the physicality side of things. There's a lot of kind of mental side in terms of, having your brain and your mental health in the right spot, and being able to focus within that moment. I mean, we've all seen boxers at the end of a round stick their hands in the air, kind of
Right.
smile to the crowd, stick their tongue out, and a lot of that's just bravado. But at the same point, it is a bit of boxing psychology, because then his opponent's going to look at him and think, "Oh my goodness, like actually he's still fit, he's not hurt, he's okay," and it plants a little seed of doubt. I mean, we've certainly seen it, within the professional scene. Likes of Tyson Fury, they're brilliant at that. Kind of getting in someone's mind, and they've almost lost before they've ever stepped into the ring. I'd like to tell a little story, actually, Malcolm, which just come to my
Go for
mind
it.
about,
Please go for it.
and it's about one of my boxing matches that I lost. And I do tell this to my boxers, my students, because I think it's really important. And basically, what had happened was that I'd sparred the guy before a few times before we boxed, and I knew that he was really good. And I suppose that seed of doubt was planted from the spars that we'd had. And then when I got into the ring and we obviously we boxed, that split second of doubt was in my mind, which stopped me from, kind of doing the things I needed to do. And by the time I sort of shook it off and got back into my rhythm, the final bell had gone and I'd lost the fight. But as you said, it's about that kind of that thought process. Because if in my head I'm like, good is good is good, rather than thinking, well, actually, I'm really good and I've trained hard and I know what I can do. And that's kind of some of the teachings that I promote.
So with if you don't mind, I want to call them. I'll call them your boxing family. And I was going to cover that a bit later on, but I'll call them your boxing family for now. So that story, what you've just explained, how do you go about doing your bit to prevent that from happening to one of your boxers? if they're nervous of an opponent.
Yeah, obviously every individual's different, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about, that assessment of people as an individual. So if I'm looking at someone coming into the gym, and I know that they're quite a nervous character, then that's something I'll be more mindful of. I think we're in an age nowadays where there's so much information available on social media, and it's so easy to be like, I'm fighting this guy. Let's go on his social media. Let's look at his pad work. Let's look at his sparring. Let's look at his last two fights and see kind of what he did. And for some people, that's quite counterproductive. And I'll sort of say to them, stop going on social media. Let's just focus on you and focus on the things that we know we need to do. And obviously, as the coach, that's my job to be looking at past footage and assessing that and seeing what work we need to do specifically for that opponent.
I hear that. So I guess it takes some of the pressure of them. It helps them helps them to keep their mind in the right place. Because I guess the danger of that is if they do see something on their opponent's social media page and they kind of think, oh shit, then that could sort of freak them out and throw them off course, isn't it? So I guess it's a case of stick to the plan that we've worked on, and that's all you need to focus on. Anything else, you'll let them know, I guess, or some kind of variation of that.
I suppose it's a bit like you said, Malcolm, wasn't it? When we boxed together on that show all them years ago, and you obviously saw my Facebook and was like, oh, geez, this geezer's serious,
Yeah.
In terms of my training and stuff. And if we did box, I'm sure that would have been.
That wouldn't have helped me. That wouldn't have helped me in the slightest. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd already started to create, and I was right because I've seen you box, but the point is, going into that could have really thrown me off if we did step into the ring. So
Sure.
no, I see that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Can you talk a bit about your very first fight? A bit more about it. Feelings,
Yeah,
emotions.
absolutely. Yeah,
Your very
yeah,
first fight.
absolutely. I mean, this is quite an interesting one actually as well, because there was a lot of kind of this, this emotional thought process involved. In terms of it's your first fight. You don't know what to expect, and kind of stepping out when in front of I think it was about 600 people the first time I boxed. Obviously your friends and family are there. You sold tickets, and I always remember at the time I was. The gym I was training out of, the coach there, he knew my opponent's brother, and my opponent's brother, it was quite, it was very well respected within the world of Muay Thai. So of course that planted a little seed of doubt, like, oh, he must be good. His brother's a Muay Thai champ, and you have all of these sort of questions in your mind. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual fight, I mean. It went really well. I stopped him in the second round, and it was. I mean, it was tough. It was really tough. I do remember, thinking afterwards, wow, like we put all of this training in, the running, the sprints, the sparring, and you don't fully appreciate quite how difficult it is when you're in there, and the adrenaline and kind of the event as well. So yeah. I mean, I will say now, Malcolm, me and my first opponent were really good friends actually now, and we've been out for a beer quite a few times, and still speak to each other to this day, so it's really nice.
That's another good point you've sort of brought up. Can you talk about the respect that usually comes from when you've stepped into a ring with someone, regardless if you win or lose, regardless of the energy or the animosity before you fight, the respect that usually arises after the fight?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's such an intimate thing, if that makes sense. That sort of two guys sharing that space for 6 minutes or 8 minutes, and trying effectively to hurt each other. In the context of what it is. You guys, you really connect, if that makes sense. We sort of share in that moment. We've both gone in there and done our absolute best to win that match. That boxing match. And I think out of all the opponents I've boxed, I think apart from maybe one, afterwards we did become friends, and a lot of them I still talk to this day, and we sort of bump into each other at boxing shows as we're now a bit older and we're coaching rather than actually competing, and it'd be, oh, good to see you, mate, and kind of we can have that discussion. Do you remember when we jumped in together and had that tear up, and how that went down? So, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of respect. It's not, obviously we see it on the TV with the professionals, don't we? With kind of sitting and growling at each other and saying this and that about each other, but once the cameras are off and once they've boxed, more often than not, these guys are actually friends, and they know each other outside of the sport.
I guess a lot of the pressure's off after it, isn't it? After all the training, after the fight, and then suddenly, regardless of the result, the pressure's off, and then you realise that is actually a human that I'm fighting across the ring, not a monster that I've made them out to be. So,
absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Right. If you don't mind, I was going to go on to a bit about your actual place where you train. So, Dappa Boxing. Where do you train? Where are you? Where can people find you?
We're based out of Storm Gym on New Bedford Road in Luton. So we run 2 classes a week down here. On a Tuesday, we do 8:30 till 9:30, and then Friday, today we sort of do 7:30, and normally 8:30, 9 o'clock, depending on how the class is running. We might run over if we've got sparring going on, or if we've got specific work being done with fighters. And then as well as that, I'm generally in the gym most days, doing sort of one-to-one work with people. And in terms of what that looks like now, we're kind of, I'm working with people from people that just want to get fit, people that just want to, do some pad work. There's people that want to do it for weight loss, for mental health, all the way through to kind of people that are competing and, kind of going out and have fights coming up. So, so I'm probably in the gym at least 4 or 5 days a week. That can be mornings, that can be evenings. So it is absolutely something I love doing. And, something that I think serves a real purpose in terms of physical and emotional well-being for people.
100% agree. And I think it's important that you shared that, because it might be different now, but I remember, maybe go back 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, a lot of clubs where they would run like boxing or Muay Thai, for example, they would only really want people in there if they were going to compete. I think there's more of a stance now on that people want to do these combat sports for other reasons. It's not necessarily just about competing. And I think it's important that you are one of the clubs that opens doors for people that have other reasons for want to box, and not just get in the ring and become a champion or whatnot.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the big onuses we have at Storm Gym, it's all about kind of, everyone's welcome. We are one big kind of family. We're all sort of here looking out for each other. I know my guys that come to the class every week. I know them really well. We go out, we do social things as well as just training, and I think it's really important to understand people's energy. So, for example, if someone walks in, I can generally tell, if something's not going well for them, and it might be like, come on, let's go and have a chat. Quite often we'll, I'll bring some of the guys in just have a cup of tea and have a catch up and see what's going on in their world, and give them that opportunity to share. Maybe things aren't going so well, or if obviously things are going well as well. That's a big part of it here at Storm. We're very inclusive and very, kind of that's our outlook on kind of the people that come. It's not you'll come to fight, it's you come to train, and then you do what you want out of that. You either train to get fit, you train to, improve your mental health, or if you want to compete, there's absolutely that opportunity to do that here as well.
Brilliant. That's good. I love to hear that. And I want to know, can you kind of read my questions from there? Because you're kind of touching on everything I want to ask. You're beating me to it. So I'll kind of repeat. There'll probably be a bit of a repeat answer, but I was going to say, so where I've noticed on the social medias, and this is what I was touching about when I said, I'll call your boxing class your boxing family, because there is a very much a family feel from what you've posted, the way you interact, and obviously that's very important. Um, I think you've kind of touched on why it's important to create that environment. Is there anything else you want to say to that? Like, why is it important that people feel that it's kind of like a family and not just a boxing gym?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point there. I mean, you know, kind of the last year for me has been, not the best year. I've had, quite a serious loss within my life, and and the guys here, they have absolutely, you know, been there for me and kind of, held me up, if that makes sense. And there's been so much love around, and it kind of goes both ways, in terms of if people are going through tough times as a team, we know that, and we're sort of checking in with them every day, kind of even if it's a text or a call or, right, Friday's coming, right, okay, after the gym, we're going to go to Nando's, let's go and have Nando's, and, or Saturday, come on, let's go out and, let's go into town and have a drink, or do something social. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, for men, we need community, we need that, inclusivity, and I think that's something that we absolutely offer here. We get new people coming in all the time, and that's generally one of the comments they say. It's like, wow, we love the energy here. We love how inviting everyone is and how friendly everyone is, and and I sort of pride myself on that. We don't, I suppose going with the title of manly ego, we don't have ego here. That's not what this is about. If we're sparring and someone starts going a bit hard, immediately it'll be a look or a quick word from me, and they'll quite quickly apologise and kind of calm down.
That's good. So, like you said, you generally are looking after the people that step through the doors, and I guess that's really what adds to that sort of feeling of family. So, the other point I was going to touch on is, and again, you've really answered the question already, but if, say, for example, John walks through the door and he doesn't seem quite right, but you can see he's trying to maybe disguise it or mask it and carry on as normal, how do you kind of deal with that sort of situation? Has that come across before? Have you had that sort of situation to deal with?
Yeah, I think so. I think my general approach for them sort of situations is just trying to have a conversation, and sort of saying to them, first and foremost, are you okay? You don't look okay, or I can feel there's something not quite right, and giving them that opportunity to share and to talk. Sometimes they might choose not to, and then it might be a simple text after the class, as I say, just to try and let them know that there's an ear there, there's someone available, there's if they want to talk or vent or whatever it might be, I'm here, we've got, it's not just me, I've got some really good coaches under me as well that now support me, so they're quite actively involved in that as well.
Good. Everyone's getting looked after. You're all, you know, watching each other's backs. Um,
Don't we,
you've said
as men?
also, yeah, yeah. You've also said that when we spoke the other day that you really do sort of encourage, mental health, especially in regards to men within the place. And what's your approach to that? How do you incorporate that with what you do?
Yeah, I think that, we're certainly, me and you, we're of an age where we're born into a generation whereby, men were men and we don't talk about how we feel, and, we kind of, we grin and bear it and just get on with things. We're either okay or we're angry, and that was the two emotions men were allowed. And,
Mm.
I think I've learned, over the years and particularly recently, that actually we're a lot more than that. We are, we do hold emotions and they are valid, and we have to kind of experience that, and even just having a conversation, like the one we had the other day where it was like, actually, some days, I might be feeling good, some days I might not, and that's okay. And and again, I think that it's all about understanding people as individuals as well. You know, you can quite often tell when someone walks in just by knowing them, you know, kind of where they're at on that particular day and whether they might need a bit of, you know, an arm around the shoulder or they might need, you know, sometimes an approach I'll take is just get them to jump in the ring, right? Let's get the pads out. Come on, get the gloves on, you know, and just make them punch, you know, hard session on the pads, you know, really take that frustration out, even if they don't want to talk about what that specific thing is that's kind of upsetting them or bothering them on that day.
I think even with that, that's really important because even if they don't want to talk in that moment, even jumping on the pads, hitting them as hard as they can, like you said, it's you recognizing, I know there's something not right. You may not want to talk to me right now, but this is my way of letting you know that I know you're not right and the door's open
Yeah,
to talk maybe later. But I think the important thing is just acknowledging and letting someone know that you've acknowledged no, that they're not themselves instead of just ignoring it or just brushing it under the carpet.
absolutely, mate. You know, I remember, you know, many gyms over the years. You know, across Luton, across different towns. You know, yeah, I certainly remember many occasions you sort of walk in. It was very much a case of here's your skipping rope, start skipping. You know, crack on with that. You know, get your gloves on, right? You're on the bag. You know, and it was very much a direct approach for coaching. You know, this is what we're doing today. We're going to be working on this, rather than that kind of initial sort of check in or you know that kind of you know that I suppose that different approach that maybe you know I try and promote within the gym. Well, we do. Everyone here does at Storm. You know, it's kind of let's say it, I think the days of you know they refer to them as the spit and sawdust gyms, don't they? You know the kind of
Mm.
you know the really sort of rough and ready gyms. You know which. I mean, they're great if you want to learn how to be tough, you know, and you know, boxing. You do need to be tough. Need to have that element of toughness about you. I mean, it can obviously be blossomed, but I think that that's something that people either have in them or they don't a lot of the time. You know, I refer to, I think I talked to you a bit about this, Malcolm, the other day, you know, about one of the things I talk to people about is finding their inner darkness, you know, and
Yes, you did say. Yeah.
yeah, you know, and that's a phrase that I hold dearly to me because we've all got it, you know, we've all been through really awful things in our life, you know, and if we can harness that energy in a positive way, you know, in terms of being able to access it when we are fighting, but you know, not letting it overwhelm us, that it can switch on, you know, what we need to be doing when we are competing.
It's almost like that sort of if you control that fire within, then you can use it. You know, no, you can use it to your advantage, can't you? I guess. So
Absolutely, you just hit the nail on the head there, mate.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Fire within, brilliant.
Right. Last couple. Darren, Dappa boxing. What is the plan for the next 5 years? Where do you want to take it within the next 5 years? How do you want it to look?
I mean, in terms of the Dapper boxing brand, I mean, we're obviously kind of building in terms of on social media, getting the name out there. You know, we're doing a lot of work in terms of kind of getting seen within, you know, within the bigger circles, the bigger networks. You know, doing sort of lots of networking events and things and reaching out. I mean, today, for example, is a perfect example of that. You know, just to let people know we're here, you know, what it is we do, and you know, kind of, you know, while you know, obviously Storm Gym is my home, and that's where we train. You know, I also do train at other places. You know, I do training with people in their own home, you know, kind of in the community or in their own gyms as well. So that is something that you know I'm hoping to grow a bit further. I mean, in terms of the class. You know, I mean, obviously we want to keep competing. You know, keep getting our names out there on the boxing circle. I mean, we are this year hoping to get affiliated with England Boxing, so that we're going to be
Wow,
able to
big move.
send some of our guys out into the into the amateur ranks, which we're looking forward to.
Big move. Sounds good. I will definitely be keeping my eye open for that. Um, Same question, but to you. 5 years from now, where do you see yourself personally? How do you want your life to be?
Yeah, I mean
What goals have you got set?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting question. You know, a real time of transition for me, Malcolm. You know, in terms of my world, and I suppose knowing what that's going to look like in 5 years' time is quite a difficult thing
Mm.
to know, really. You know, I think I've got lots of personal goals within my within my life that I want to achieve in terms of I want to do lots of travelling. I want to kind of go and see the world and maybe do some of the things that I haven't done before, just by virtue of the setup of what my world looks like. Obviously want to grow this brand, and use it for the greater good. Not just for competing in boxing, but supporting men's mental health, supporting kind of what we can do within the community. So I think they're certainly goals for me. I think but yeah, I mean, we don't know what the future is going to hold. Do we? Things can change within the blink of an eye, and I suppose you've got to, as they say in boxing, roll with the punches, and figure out what that new world looks like. I think in a brief summary, I think that's probably what my outlook on the world is at the minute.
It's good. It's good, and it's good to see how dedicated you are to your boxing brand and what you're doing. It's very apparent in the way you talk about it, and like I said, the seriousness I noticed in the first picture from the first boxing event we did together is still there now. So I think people are in good hands that are part of your boxing family. So
Thank you, appreciate that,
and
mate.
I'm excited to see what happens. And again, where can people follow you on social media, just so they know? And where are you training again? Just put it out there again for anyone that jumped on afterwards.
Yeah, so we're down at Storm Gym in Luton on New Bedford Road, just opposite Wardown Park. We train Tuesdays and Fridays. So if you want to come down, come try it out. First class is free, guys. So come down, see what it's all about. And then obviously, you kind of, if you want to do some one-to-one work with me, you can contact me via the socials. So it's Dappa Boxing is my social page on Instagram and TikTok. So if you want to add me on there and sort of give me a message, we can have a chat about kind of I suppose, what you would hope to achieve and what you would like to do, really. We can move it from there.
Sounds good. Sounds brilliant. And anyone who is considering boxing, definitely reach out to this man. I can vouch for him. So reach out and check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. It will be if it's something you're focused and interested in doing. So, Darren,
I might just
thank you
share
for your
one
time,
more
my man.
story, Malcolm, before we finish up.
Oh,
Is that all right?
please. Yeah, of course, 100%.
I'd love to share with the viewers kind of my experience of one of your last boxing matches, because it was quite an interesting one where Malcolm had come to us and asked if he could box one of his colleagues at work, and we'd sort of agreed and set that up for him. And I do remember sort of standing in the corner, and I mean, to your credit, Malcolm, you totally outboxed him. Like literally kind of. And you're such a humble guy. You came back to the corner at the end of the fight and you looked at me and he goes, "Do you think I won that, Darren?" I was like, "Yeah, I would say so." And obviously you won the fight, and I believe you had a rematch as well on a different show where I believe
Yeah,
you went on and stopped him as well. So, obviously your experience in the game as well is, to be recognised, I think. So,
I appreciate
yeah, it's
that.
one memory of mine we've shared.
Do you know what the thing is with that fight? It's like, yeah, I was in the ring and I know I did, no, I did quite a few good things, but you never know, do you? You don't always know what other people can see, and I guess you're going to try and be biased and think, well, I landed a better punch or I did better there. So, but,
Yeah,
for me, it's still that doubt is like, I had to check, did I win that? Am I winning? So, yeah,
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate it, Malcolm. I appreciate your time, brother. It's lovely to speak to you again. And yeah, maybe we can set up again on another day.
100%. Hopefully we catch up further on in the year and you've got some, we've got some more stories from what's going on within the gym and maybe in some of the events that you and your boxing family have reached out to. So we'll definitely keep in contact.
Okay, mate. You have a good evening, won't you? I'll
You
speak
too,
to you
Darren.
soon.
Thank you very
Take
much,
care,
man.
mate.
Appreciated.
Bye-bye.
Speak to you soon.